So wide scale view, I'm looking at what's going to be pushing and pulling this system. There's not much in the way. I do see all the cold mountaintops there. That's a good thing for helping degrade the system and downgrade the hurricane or typhoon, but in the meantime, it is still very strong. So as far as strength is concerned, at the core, we were just, I was just updated that it's now around category 2 at the core, 105 miles per hour. And looking ahead for landfall, I have the toggle over this where it's blinking. And we can see right now just 32 knots. But looking ahead just 6 hours, right where I've been assuming this would make landfall, just based on what I'll show later. We're seeing what is in the ballpark of 103, 105 mile per hour winds right there. So that's category 3, super typhoon status. That's very damaging. So if there are 200,000 people population there, I'm going to go ahead and play through this model. It's one that I've been agreeing with well. And I have this green screen behind me. I've been trying to get this running, but it's not quite ready. So in the meantime, I'll use what I have. And again, I'll play this, showing the landfall there on that island. And heading up to more populated regions of India and Bangladesh, between Kolkata, Dhaka regions. And so this is just one model's forecast that then shows us by the weekend things would be returning more to normal. So the things that will drive this and help me decide where this will be turning and moving is temperatures. They always want to move towards the warm air. It kind of drives and fuels these types of storms. But all of the mountains here, that's going to be a factor in downgrading it as well, by way of wind shear that I'll get into a little later. But first, I want to take a look at all the statements and exact times, because this is just 6 hours from now. This is through the India Meteorological Department. I've been really happy with their statements. I think they're doing a really good job showing that 85 knot winds. So that's equivalent to 157 miles or kilometers per hour. And that is very damaging. So right here in what is a populated region, some of these areas, I hope everybody's evacuated, because not only are we going to worry about these winds as high, but of course the storm surge will be there as well. And again, just to kind of look at the winds and think about what we'd be dealing with there with the 97 mile per hour or 157 kilometers per hour forecasted there at landfall, we'd be in the ballpark of pretty strong damaging winds. What a lot of people would be calling category 2 winds or category 2 hurricanes. And I did post a story on my Facebook this week about a place in that same region that did get swept away by water. So unfortunately, that's the biggest, I think the biggest threat to that region east of the eye wall. Otherwise, it's these wind speeds. Now, these have already been felt. That was on the coast of India earlier today. So that's, enough to do tropical storm force winds that can drop tree limbs, kind of cause damage, and then have the heavier gusts that might knock down a tree or do further damage. But changing again here, looking at the temperatures, that's where it's going to be heading toward, is a region of higher temperatures. So these are the sea surface temperatures, and that's not really a mechanism here that we can decipher, because all of those temperatures are the same. So then I'm going to go through and do things a little slower now after I come back to the wind speed forecast and go over the wind shear, because this will be downgrading in the next few days a lot, and I'll show you why, and especially at landfall. downgrading a lot right after landfall. So that's what I'll get into after I run this forecast track one more time and just make sure things are visible on the feed, since I had to do this a little different so that people can hear me. Okay, so it looks like everything is visible. I'm glad to see that at least. And soon enough, I'll get this green screen up. So about sheltering, I shared some things on my Facebook page about some shelters that were in place, even with livestock, options for livestock to go. Because that's going to be important for anybody along this vicinity here where all the storm surge is going to be extremely high. That's definitely one of my biggest concerns with this. And then the Koltaka region here, where there are about 15 million people living, that could be really flooded around some of those lower lying areas closer to the waterways. And the damaging winds, there will be some gusts that are stronger than what we have forecast. Some of those stronger gusts are in the thresholds of Category 3, which is considered devastating winds. And so I want to go through more of this forecast here, though, because the good news here is that, yes, it downgrades quickly, rapidly. The wind speeds are going to go down. So anybody that's living near, more closer to Dhaka, things are not going to be as bad as we're seeing here. It's going to rapidly decrease because of all the mountains and also the wind shear. So now I'll jump back into that wind shear that I skipped over earlier. So I wanted to make sure everybody focused in on the exact forecast track first. And now this is what is called 24-hour shear tendency. I'll try to get the entire thing into view before I start this. All the information here. So we can see this is AMPHAN here in the Bay of Bengal. And we have a bunch of colors, a bunch of numbers and lines, and these are really important in forecasting tracks and also knowing, is this storm going to get worse, is it going to get better, and when? And here we have some good news. Things have even changed since I saw this last. It updated in the last few hours. So decreasing shear is here, and I'll explain what shear is in just a minute. But we're going to know that that's close to AMPHAN. And we'll also know that low shear numbers, these are in knots. I didn't quite get it, but up here it says the shear is in knots. So lower values around 20, pretty low. High values would be, more like 40s, 60s. 60s is really high. Around mountain peaks, that's normal that there would be wind shear. Because what wind shear is something that destroys hurricanes by bringing in winds that don't match that cyclonic flow. So we saw on satellite, everything's just cyclonically flowing around this storm. All of a sudden, the mountains intermingle with the storm and start disorganizing it. So wind shear just means, one example I can give is if there's this pole right here on the ground, the low level here is going to be having a flag going one way at a certain speed. And then midway, it'll be blowing a different way, maybe a little faster. And up top, a completely different way, and even more rapidly. That's wind shear, and that's pretty normal in the atmosphere. But with hurricanes, typhoons, these cyclonic storms, they start organizing, and that's where they get intense. When they're all those winds, top to bottom, are moving the same speed in the same direction at the same time, that's no wind shear. that drives hurricanes, typhoons to continue strengthening, and without outside forces to kind of disassemble that organization or cool down the temperature, then it just keeps on intensifying. So right now, the good news is that we do have this year that will begin affecting it. Those outer bands on the satellite, they go way up. Well, they're starting to get closer to this higher shear. So eventually they'll start intersecting, and there are plenty of mountains here where we are seeing these 30 to 40 values. That's also good news. And so as this moves north and does make landfall, we have plenty of reason to believe that it's going to decrease in intensity rapidly, leave behind some rain. It's going to linger on all the way to the north, to the east. But beyond that, the temperatures for the north up here in this high shear profile, that is also going to start affecting the storm in the next 6 hours or so. Once it makes landfall, we'll see cool temperatures getting mixed in to that center flow, and that too will decrease the intensity of this very quickly. So I'll end with some more playthroughs on these. And I'll go ahead and add anything. I'll